The great crystal chamber floated in the empty space between star systems, far from any world that might hold curious eyes or listening ears. The Galactic Council had chosen this hidden location for their most secret meeting in over 1,000 years. 12 different alien species had sent their most important representatives, and each one knew that what they discussed today would change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Kral of the Vorthon Empire stood at the center of the massive hall as 4 powerful arms moved as he spoke, and his deep voice echoed off the crystal walls that surrounded them. The Vorthons were known across the galaxy as master builders and warriors. Their ships were among the fastest, and their weapons among the deadliest. But today, Kral was not here to talk about building or fighting. He was here to talk about control. The other representatives sat in a perfect circle around him. Each species had their own special chair designed for their unique bodies. A insect like Zik clicked their sharp mandibles together, making a sound like metal on metal whenever they became nervous. The Nefari, who were made of pure gas, swirled inside their special protective suits that kept them from floating away. The tall, thin Kalari sat perfectly still as always, while their large black eyes watched everything that happened. Elder Morth of the Crystalline Collective was perhaps the most impressive being in the room. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors as her emotions shifted. Right now she glowed a deep blue, which meant she was thinking very hard about serious matters. The crystalline beings were the oldest species in the galaxy, and many others looked to them for wisdom and guidance. Behind each representative stood guards and advisors, but they had all been sworn to absolute silence about what would be discussed here today. The council had even used special technology to block all communications in and out of the chamber. Nothing that happened here would reach the outside galaxy until they wanted it. Kral raised all 4 of his arms to get everyone's attention. The hall became completely quiet except for the soft humming of the life support systems that kept the different species alive in the same space. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Kral began, his voice carrying easily to every corner of the chamber. We gather today in secret because we face a threat unlike any we have encountered before. This threat does not come from outside our galaxy. It does not come from ancient enemies or unknown forces. It comes from within, and it grows stronger every day. He pressed a button on his control device, and a large holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. The display showed a map of their galaxy with thousands of different colored dots representing the territories of various species. Most of the galaxy was marked in the traditional colors that had remained unchanged for centuries, but there was something that had not been there 50 years ago. Scattered across the map were bright blue dots, and these blue areas were spreading. The blue represented human territory, and there was much more of it than there had been just a few years earlier. Look at this map, Kral said, pointing at the display with 2 of his arms. When the humans first left their small blue world 50 years ago, they controlled only 1 tiny star system. Today they control 30 systems, and their expansion rate is increasing every year. The Zik representative clicked his mandibles loudly in distress while several other aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Everyone in the room had seen the reports. Everyone knew the numbers. But seeing it displayed like this made the reality impossible to ignore. The humans reproduce faster than any other intelligent species we have encountered. Kral continued. They build ships quicker than we thought possible. They adapt to new environments in ways that should be impossible. Their colonies grow from small outposts to major settlements in just a few years. What takes other species decades to accomplish, humans do in less than 10 years. Ambassador Vex of the Hegemony leaned forward in his chair. His species looked somewhat like humans, but with gray skin and larger heads. They had been studying humans longer than most other species. The problem is not just their expansion rate, Vex said in his thin, reedy voice. The problem is how they expand. They do not simply take over empty worlds. They actively seek out other species to trade with, to form alliances with. They are changing the balance of power in the galaxy. Elder Morth finally spoke, and when she did, her crystal body shifted to a warning orange color. The humans have approached my people 3 times in the past year. They offer technology sharing agreements. They want to establish joint research projects. They seem to genuinely want cooperation rather than conquest. That is exactly what makes them so dangerous, interrupted General Orcs of the militant coalition. His species looked like walking suits of armor, and they had been warriors for thousands of years. They offer friendship and cooperation while they take over more and more territory. They make other species dependent on their technology and their trade. Then those species become loyal to humans instead of to the old galactic order. The room erupted in discussion as representatives began talking to each other in their various languages. The translation systems worked overtime to convert dozens of different alien tongues into something everyone could understand. But the message was clear in every language. Fearcrawl waited for the noise to die down before he continued speaking. The worst part is that they are successful. Their colonies prosper. Their people are happy. The species that trade with them benefit from the relationship. In many ways, they are better neighbors than some of our own traditional allies. So what do you propose? Asked Commander Zilt of the Outer Rim Collective. Her species lived in the far edges of the galaxy and had only recently encountered humans, but even they had heard the stories. Complete control, Kral said without any hesitation in his voice. We establish strict limits on human expansion. We control their trade routes, their military development, and their colonization efforts. They must seek our permission before they establish any new colonies. They must ask our approval before they make any new alliances. They must submit all their technology developments for our review. The chamber fell silent as the implications of Kral's proposal sank in. What he was suggesting was unprecedented in galactic history. Never before had the Council attempted to control a member species so completely, but they are not yet members of the Council, pointed out Elder Morth. That gives us the legal authority to treat them as we see fit. Exactly, said Kral. They have been operating freely because we have allowed it. We have been patient, we have been tolerant, but our patience has limits. The time has come to establish clear boundaries before their expansion threatens the stability of the entire galaxy. General Corex stood up from his armored chair. The humans must learn that there are consequences for uncontrolled growth. They must understand that the galaxy has rules, and that those rules apply to everyone regardless of how fast they can build ships or how quickly they can establish colonies. The vote was organized quickly. Each species would cast one vote. The question was simple. Should the Galactic Council establish complete administrative control over human expansion and development? One by one, the representatives cast their votes. The Vorthans voted yes. The Jik voted yes. The Nefari voted yes. Every single species voted to control the humans. Not one vote was cast in opposition. Not one voice was raised to defend the species from the small blue planet. The decision was made in secret, with no human representatives present to speak for their people. The Council believed they held all the power in the galaxy, and these newcomers needed to learn their place among the established order. But as the meeting concluded and the delegates prepared to return to their homeworlds, none of them noticed the small maintenance drone that had been quietly hovering in the upper reaches of the crystal chamber. The drone looked like thousands of others that kept the Council facilities running smoothly. What they did not know was that this particular drone had been recording everything, and its operator was very much human. 3 days after the secret Council meeting, Captain Dae-Ho Kim sat in his command chair aboard the human flagship Determination. The massive ship floated in the darkness between two star systems where dozens of other human vessels had gathered for an emergency meeting that would decide the fate of their entire species. The bridge of Determination buzzed with activity as crew members worked at their stations, but everyone could feel the tension in the air. They had all seen the recording that the maintenance drone had captured at the Council chamber. They had all watched 12 alien species vote to control humanity without even asking what humans thought about it. Commander Sunmi Park stood beside Dae-Ho's chair, holding a data pad that contained reports from across human space. Every few minutes she would receive another message, and each one brought worse news. Their carefully built relationships with alien species were falling apart faster than anyone had thought possible. Captain, the blockade around Kepler 442b is complete, reported Lieutenant Hyunwoo Lee from the communication station. 3 Vorthan battlecruisers are preventing any ships from reaching the colony. The colonists are running low on medical supplies, and the Vorthans are refusing all requests for humanitarian aid. Deho closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. The colony on Kepler 442b was home to nearly 50,000 humans, including many families with young children. The thought of them being trapped without proper medical care made his stomach turn with anger. "What about the Ross 128b situation?" he asked. Commander Park checked her data pad. "The JIC have surrounded the entire system with their insect ships. They are demanding that all human colonists evacuate within 10 days. They claim the system now belongs to the Galactic Council, and humans no longer have permission to live there." Similar reports were coming in from all across human space. The aliens were moving faster than anyone had expected. Trade ships that had been traveling the same routes for decades were being stopped and searched. Diplomatic missions were being turned away at the borders. Human colonies that had existed peacefully for years were suddenly being told they were illegal. The worst part was that many of the alien species doing this had been friends and trading partners with humans just days earlier. The Kalari had been working with human scientists on joint research projects. Now they were refusing to return human equipment. The Usanti had invited human engineers to help improve their infrastructure. Now they were demanding that all humans leave their territory immediately. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission from Admiral So Young." Choi at Colonial Defense Headquarters announced Lieutenant Lee put her through ordered Deho. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Choi. She looked tired and stressed, but her eyes still burned with determination. Behind her, the command center at New Geneva Station was filled with activity, as staff members coordinated responses to crisis situations across human space. "Captain Kim," she said without any formal greeting. "We have a problem. The aliens are implementing their control plan faster than we anticipated. They are not waiting for official announcements or legal procedures. They are simply taking action." "How bad is it?" asked. "Deho, worse than we feared," replied the Admiral. "In the past 3 days, we have lost contact with 7 colonies. Our trade income has dropped by 60%, and several species are demanding that we surrender our military vessels for inspection. They want complete disarmament." Commander Park stepped forward. "Admiral, what are your orders?" "The crew is ready to fight, but we need to know what kind of fight we are getting into." Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment as she considered her words. "The Council thinks they can treat us like children who need to be controlled. They believe they can make decisions about our future without including us in the conversation. They are about to learn that humans do not accept that kind of treatment." The bridge crew listened carefully as the Admiral continued. "We are calling all human ships to rendezvous at the neutral zone border. Every captain, every crew, every ship that can fly. We are going to the Council chambers and we are going to have a conversation. They will not forget." "But Admiral," said Commander Park, "the Council has thousands of ships. We have less than 50. How can we possibly stand against those odds, Sun Mi?" The Admiral replied using the commander's first name. "Sometimes the most important battles are not won by having the most ships. Sometimes they are won by having the most courage. The aliens voted to control us because they think we will simply accept their decision. They are about to discover they are very wrong." Captain Deho felt a surge of pride as he listened to the Admiral. The human military had always been smaller than the alien fleets, but they had never backed down from a fight when freedom was at stake. "This would be no different, Admiral. We will be ready," said Deho. "How long do we have?" 72 hours, replied Admiral Choi. "Every human ship in the galaxy should be at the rendezvous point by then. We are sending the message on all frequencies. Any ship that can fly should join us." As the transmission ended, the bridge crew began preparing for what might be the most important mission in human history. Lieutenant Lee sent messages to human ships across the galaxy, while other crew members checked weapon systems and prepared the ship for potential combat. But even as they prepared, Deho knew this was about more than just fighting. The aliens had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that humans would behave like other species, that humans would accept control from those who claimed authority over them. What the aliens did not understand was that humans had spent their entire history fighting against those who would control them. They had fought kings and emperors and dictators, They had crossed oceans and climbed mountains and reached for the stars because they refused to accept limitations imposed by others. A message from Admiral Choi spread across human space like wildfire. Within hours, ships began changing course and heading for the rendezvous point. Captain Xunghwan Yu abandoned his deep space exploration mission and turned his ship toward the neutral zone. Commander Yejin Kang left her research station and joined the growing fleet. Even civilian pilots volunteered their ships for the journey. Some humans questioned whether they should risk everything in a confrontation with the Council. They pointed out that the aliens had superior numbers and advanced weapons. They suggested that maybe negotiation would be better than conflict. But for every voice that counseled caution, there were 10 that demanded action. The aliens had shown their true feelings about humanity. They saw humans as a problem to be controlled, rather than as equals to be respected. That was something no human could accept as the hours passed and more ships joined the fleet. Captain Dae Ho realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. For the first time, an entire species was mobilizing not to conquer or to destroy, but simply to demand the right to be heard. The aliens had wanted to control humanity without understanding what they were trying to control. They were about to get a lesson in human nature that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The fleet grew larger as ships arrived from every corner of human space. Soon, they would make the journey. To the council chambers. Together they would face whatever consequences awaited them. But they would face them as free beings, not as controlled subjects of an alien government. Admiral So Young Choi stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, watching the tactical display that showed human ships moving across the galaxy like bright dots converging on a single point. Every few minutes another vessel would appear on the screen as it changed course to join the growing fleet. The space station orbited peacefully around a gas giant, but the mood inside was anything but peaceful. Officers rushed between workstations coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. Supply ships were being loaded with everything the fleet might need. Medical teams were preparing for casualties, and engineers were working around the clock to make sure every ship was ready for whatever they might face. Major Jin Woo Nam approached the Admiral with a new report in his hands. Admiral, we now have 47 ships confirmed for the rendezvous. That includes everything from our newest battle cruisers to converted mining vessels. The civilian captains are insisting. They want to be part of this. So Young studied the numbers on her display. 47 ships against the thousands of vessels that the alien species could field seemed like hopeless odds, but she had learned long ago that battles were not always won by the side with the most ships. Sometimes they were won by the side with the most determination. How are our supplies? She asked. We have enough food and fuel for a month-long campaign, replied Jin Woo. But Admiral, if we are really going to the council chambers, we will be deep in alien territory with no support. If something goes wrong, we will be completely on our own. So Young nodded grimly. She had considered all the risks and knew that this mission could end in disaster, but she also knew that doing nothing would be an even greater disaster. The aliens had made their choice when they voted to control humanity. Now humans would make their choice in response. Send orders to all ships. She said, we gather at coordinates 77 Alpha in the neutral zone. From there, we proceed together to the council chambers. No ship goes alone and no ship turns back. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien intelligence networks were reporting the unusual movement of human vessels. Military commanders from a dozen species were trying to understand what the humans were planning. The council had expected protests and diplomatic complaints. They had not expected the entire human fleet to mobilize for what looked like a military operation. General Vrex of the Korthanian Defense Force sat in his command bunker studying reports from his scouts. The Korthans were reptilian creatures with excellent tactical minds, and Vrex had been watching human military movements for years. He had always been impressed by their coordination and discipline. The humans are not behaving as we predicted, he reported to his superiors. Their fleet movements are too organized, too purposeful. This is not a desperate scramble. This is a planned operation, Ambassador. Kral received the report while traveling back to his homeworld aboard his personal flagship. The Vorthan leader was confident that the council had made the right decision, but the human response was larger than he had anticipated. How many ships do they have? He asked his aide. Current estimates suggest 47 vessels, replied the aide. That includes both military and civilian craft. They are all converging on the neutral zone. Border Crawl considered this information. 47 ships was a significant force, but it was still vastly outnumbered by the combined alien fleets. If the humans were planning some kind of military action, they would be crushed quickly and completely. Let them come, he said with confidence. When they see our full strength, they will realize that resistance is futile. Sometimes the best way to teach a lesson is to let the student learn it the hard way. But other alien leaders were not so confident. Elder Morth of the Crystalline Collective had been thinking about the human response, and something about it worried her. The humans were not acting like a species that was panicking or desperate. They were acting like a species that had a plan. The Crystalline being called an emergency meeting of the Council, leadership representatives from all 12 species gathered via holographic communication to discuss the human mobilization. This is not what we expected, said Commander Zilt of the Outer Rim Collective. We thought they would send diplomats to negotiate. We thought they would try to find a peaceful solution instead. They are mobilizing their entire fleet. Perhaps that proves our point exactly, replied General Korax of the Militant Coalition. The humans are showing their true nature. They respond to reasonable control measures with military force. This confirms that they are too dangerous to be allowed unrestricted expansion. But Elder Morth was not convinced. She had studied human behavior for decades and had learned that they rarely acted without careful consideration. When humans mobilized for war, it was usually because they had exhausted all other options. I believe we may have miscalculated, she said carefully. The humans are not responding with random aggression. They are responding with coordinated purpose. That suggests they have a strategy that we do not understand. What strategy could they possibly have, asked Ambassador Kral. They are outnumbered 20-1. Even if they fight desperately, they cannot win a direct confrontation. It is exactly what concerns me, replied Elder Morth. If they cannot win through direct confrontation, then they must be planning something else. Something we have not anticipated as the alien leaders debated human intentions. The human fleet was gathering. At the rendezvous point in the neutral zone, Captain Daeho Kim watched through the viewports of determination as ship after ship arrived from hyperspace. Each vessel that joined them brought news from different parts of human territory. Captain Minho Jiang arrived with reports that the alien blockades were tightening around human colonies. Commander Yunjin Cho brought word that several species were demanding immediate human withdrawal from disputed systems. Captain Sungmin Yoon reported that alien patrol ships were stopping and searching any vessel with human crew members, but with each report of alien aggression, the human fleet grew more determined. Rather than being intimidated by the overwhelming odds, they were inspired by the justice of their cause. They had spent 50 years building peaceful relationships with alien species, only to discover that those relationships meant nothing when the aliens decided humans were inconvenient. The last ship to arrive was commanded by Captain Myung-Soo Han, who brought the most disturbing news of all. The aliens were not just implementing trade restrictions and territorial limitations. They were actively spreading propaganda that portrayed humans as dangerous expansionists who threatened galactic stability. Captain Han played recordings of alien news broadcasts that described humans as aggressive warmongers who could not be trusted with advanced technology. The broadcasts suggested that human colonies were actually military bases and that human trade missions were cover for intelligence-gathering operations. It was clear that the aliens were not just trying to control human expansion, they were trying to turn the entire galaxy against humanity by portraying them as a threat that needed to be contained. Admiral So Young Choi arrived at the rendezvous point aboard her flagship Indomitable and immediately called a meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room was filled with the faces of 47 human commanders, each one representing hundreds of crew members who had volunteered for this mission. We all know why we are here, she began. The aliens have decided to control us without our consent. They have voted to limit our expansion, restrict our trade, and monitor our technology development. They have done this in secret without allowing us to speak in our own defense. The faces on the screen showed a mixture of anger and determination. These were experienced space travelers who had spent years building relationships with alien species. They had believed in the possibility of peaceful coexistence, only to discover that their alien neighbors saw them as a problem to be managed. Our response must be clear and unmistakable, continued the Admiral. We are going to the council chambers not to fight but to demand recognition. We will show them that humans cannot be controlled by others. We will demonstrate that we are not subjects to be managed, but equals to be respected. The fleet began moving toward the council chambers in perfect formation. Each ship held its position as they traveled through hyperspace toward what might be the most important confrontation in galactic history. Behind them, they left human colonies, under alien blockade and human traders being turned away from markets they had served for decades. Ahead of them lay the unknown, but they faced it together as free beings determined to shape their own destiny. The council chamber had never witnessed anything like the sight that greeted them when 47 human ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. The vessels appeared as bright points of light against the dark void their engines creating, a spectacular display that could be seen from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Alarm signals immediately began sounding throughout the alien defense stations as hundreds of warships scrambled to respond to what appeared to be an invasion. The Council had never been directly challenged in their hidden location, and the sudden appearance of an entire fleet sent panic through the alien command structures. Captain Dae-Ho Kim stood on the Bridge of Determination, watching as alien vessels rushed to surround the human fleet. The numbers were overwhelming, with Vorthon battlecruisers, Jik swarm ships and vessels from a dozen other species forming a massive defensive perimeter around the human formation. "Sir, we are being scanned by multiple alien vessels," reported Lieutenant Hyunwoo Lee from his communication station. "They are demanding that we power down our weapons and prepare to be boarded." "Tell them we are here for a diplomatic meeting," replied Dae-Ho calmly. "We are not here to fight, but we are also not here to surrender. Our weapons will remain online and our shields will remain raised." The tension in space was so thick it could almost be felt through the hulls of the ships. Human crews worked at their stations, with steady hands, while alien forces tried to decide whether they were facing an attack or something else entirely. The humans made no aggressive moves, but they also showed no signs of backing down. Admiral So Young Choi opened a communication channel to all human vessels and to the alien fleet. "Remember why we are here," she announced. "This is not about conquest or destruction. This is about respect and recognition. We will not fire first, but we will defend ourselves if attacked." Ambassador Krall appeared on the main view screen of every human ship, his forearms crossed in a gesture of authority that was supposed to show his complete control of the situation. But the Vorthon leader looked less confident than he had during the secret council meeting. "Human vessels, you are in violation of galactic law," he announced in his deep voice. "You will immediately power down all weapons systems and prepare to be escorted to detention facilities. Your ships will be impounded and your crews will be processed according to council regulations." Captain Dae-Ho stepped forward so that his image would be transmitted to every alien ship in the area. "Ambassador Krall BM, Captain Dae-Ho Kim representing the United Human Colonies. We are here to address the Council's recent decision regarding our species." "There is nothing to discuss," replied Krall sharply. "The Council has voted. Your expansion ends now. Your colonies will be evacuated and your military forces will be disbanded. This is not a negotiation with respect, Ambassador. You voted to control a species you have never properly consulted," Dae-Ho said firmly. "You made decisions about our future without including us in the conversation. That is not how civilized beings conduct themselves." The alien fleet began moving closer, with weapons charging and targeting systems locking onto human ships. The humans could see the overwhelming firepower arrayed against them, but not a single vessel moved out of formation. Every captain held their position, knowing that backing down now would mean the end of human independence. But then something unexpected began to happen. New ships started arriving from hyperspace, but these were not additional human vessels. Instead, they were alien ships displaying the markings of species that had been helped by humans over the years. The first to arrive were 3 Kalari science vessels. Their sleek silver hulls reflected the light from nearby stars as they took position alongside the human fleet. Captain Dae-ho recognized the lead ship as one he had worked with during a joint research mission 2 years earlier. More ships continued to arrive. Threnody, diplomatic vessels appeared next, followed by Yusanti construction ships, and then vessels from species that most humans had barely heard of. Each new arrival changed the balance of power in the space around the council chambers. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Ambassador Krall as he watched his overwhelming numerical advantage begin to disappear. Captain Wekna of the Kalari vessel, Brightseeker opened a communication channel to address both the human fleet and the council forces. "Captain Kim and his people helped us discover a cure for the Crimson Plague that was killing our children. We do not forget." Ardet's commander Threx of the Threnody ship spoke next. "The humans mediated the peace that ended our civil war. Without their intervention, our species would have destroyed itself. We stand with them now, one by one, the alien captains who had joined." The human fleet explained why they were there. The Yusanti owed human engineers for saving their dying homeworld. The Mordak had been rescued from pirates by human patrol ships. The Villani had received food aid during a famine. The Karathi had been given medical supplies during a plague outbreak. What had started as 47 human ships facing thousands of alien vessels had become something entirely different. Nearly 200 ships now stood together representing dozens of species that had been helped by human intervention over the years. Elder Morth of the Crystalline Collective watched the developments with growing concern from her position aboard the Council command ship. This was not the simple matter of controlling an aggressive species that the Council had thought it would be. The humans had built real relationships across the galaxy, and those relationships were now being tested. Ambassador Krall tried to maintain his authority, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "These species are being manipulated by human propaganda," he announced. "The humans have used their aid and assistance to create dependence and loyalty. This proves exactly why they must be controlled, Captain." Dae-ho smiled grimly as he looked at the mixed fleet that had gathered around the human vessels. "It seems we are not as alone as you thought, Ambassador. We have spent 50 years building relationships based on mutual respect and cooperation. Those relationships mean something." Space around the council chambers had become a complex maze of ships from dozens of different species. Some were there to enforce the council's control measures, while others had come to stand with humanity. The situation was unlike anything in galactic history. Admiral So Young Choi opened a general communication channel to address everyone present. "The council voted to control us without hearing our voice. They made decisions about our future without considering our wishes. They assumed we would simply accept their authority because they claimed to represent the established order." She paused to let her words sink in before continuing. "But we are not here to be controlled. We are here to be heard. We demand the right to speak for ourselves, and to be treated as equals rather than subjects." The alien vessels that had come to support the humans began to echo her words in their own languages, creating a chorus of voices, demanding that the council reconsider their decision. The humans had not come alone, and they had not come to conquer. They had come with friends and allies who believed in their cause. Ambassador Krall realized that the simple military action he had expected was becoming a complex political situation. The council had assumed they could intimidate humanity into submission, but instead they were facing a coalition of species that challenged their authority. Emergency communications began flying between the council representatives as they tried to decide how to respond to this unexpected development. They had planned for human resistance, but they had not planned for other species joining that resistance. The standoff continued with hundreds of ships from multiple species facing each other in the space. Around the council chambers, the humans had achieved what they came for. They had forced the council to pay attention to them, and to acknowledge that humanity had friends and allies throughout the galaxy. What happened next would determine not just the future of humanity, but the future of the entire galactic political structure. The old order was being challenged, and everyone present knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The Great Crystal Chamber of the Galactic Council had been expanded for the first time in over 1,000 years. Additional seating areas had been hastily constructed to accommodate representatives from 23 different species, including, for the first time in galactic history, official human delegates. Captain Dae-ho Kim, sat in the newly installed human section, flanked by Admiral So-Young Choi and Commander Sun-Mi Park. Their presence in the chamber marked a historic moment that would be remembered for generations. The species that had been voted to be controlled without representation now sat as equals among the established powers of the galaxy. Elder Morth of the Crystalline Collective stood at the center podium, her translucent form shifting through various colors as she addressed the assembled delegates. The emergency session had been called after 3 days of tense negotiations, during which ships from dozens of species had remained positioned around the council chambers. Vote to establish administrative control over human expansion has been rescinded, announced Elder Morth, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 23 species voted to overturn the original decision, while 12 species voted to maintain the control measures. A murmur of voices filled the chamber as representatives from various species reacted to the announcement. The humans had gained 11 new allies during the crisis species that had been helped by human intervention. Over the years had voted to support human independence. Captain Wekna of the Kalari stood to address the chamber. Our species has worked closely with humans for over a decade. They have shared their knowledge freely and have never asked for anything in return except friendship and cooperation. When our children were dying from the Crimson Plague, human medical teams worked alongside our doctors to find a cure. They did not demand payment or concessions. They simply helped because it was the right thing to do. Similar testimonies came from other species that had joined the human cause. The Threnodi spoke of human diplomats who had mediated their civil war without taking sides. The Usanti described human engineers who had worked for months to save their homeworld from environmental collapse. The Mordak told of human patrol ships that had driven off pirates without asking for territorial concessions in return, but not everyone in the chamber was pleased with the outcome. Ambassador Krall of the Vorthan Empire stood up from his seat, his forearms trembling with barely controlled anger. "This is a grave mistake," he declared loudly. "Humans are dangerous precisely because they appear helpful and cooperative. They spread across the galaxy offering aid and assistance while secretly building a network of dependent species. They interfere in conflicts that do not involve them, and they spread their influence through what they call cooperation." Elder Morth called for order as the chamber erupted in heated discussion. Species that had voted against the humans argued that the decision was based on emotion rather than logic, while those that supported humanity defended their choice. Captain Deho rose from his seat and walked to the center of the chamber where he could address all the assembled delegates. The motion systems fell silent as everyone waited to hear what the human representative would say. "Ambassador Krall, you are correct about one thing," he began. "We do interfere. When we see suffering, we try to help. When we encounter injustice, we try to correct it. When we find species engaged in conflicts that could be prevented, we offer mediation. These actions are not part of some secret plan for galactic domination. They are simply what we believe civilized beings should do for each other." He turned to face the alien delegates who had voted against humanity. "You fear us because we do not behave as you expect us to behave. You are accustomed to species that expand through conquest or that seek to dominate others through superior technology or military force. But humans expand through cooperation and friendship. We build relationships rather than empires, Admiral." So-Young Choi stood up to join her captain at the center of the chamber. "The council voted to control us because you made assumptions about our intentions based on your own experiences with expansion and conquest, but you never asked us what our intentions actually were. You never tried to understand what drives human behavior." She gestured toward the mixed group of alien delegates in the chamber. "Look around you. The species that support us are not our subjects or our dependents. They are our partners and our friends. We have built these relationships through decades of mutual respect and cooperation, not through force or manipulation." Commander Sun-Mi Park also rose to address the assembly. "The council assumed that because we expand rapidly and reproduce quickly, we must be a threat. But expansion and reproduction are not inherently dangerous. What matters is how a species chooses to use their growth. We choose to use our growth to help others to explore new worlds and to build connections across the galaxy, Ambassador." Krall remained standing, his forearms now crossed in defiance. This idealistic view of human nature ignores the reality of galactic politics. Every species that has expanded rapidly has eventually become a threat to established powers. The humans may seem benevolent now, but power corrupts all beings eventually. Captain Deho nodded respectfully toward the Vorthon ambassador. You may be right. Ambassador, power does corrupt many species, but humans have a long history of checking their own power through democratic institutions and individual rights. We do not concentrate authority in the hands of a few leaders. We distribute it among our people, and we hold ourselves accountable for our actions. He paused to let his words sink in before continuing. And that brings us to the fundamental issue that brought us here today. You voted to control us without giving us a voice in that decision. You assumed authority over our species without our consent. That is exactly the kind of concentrated, unchecked power that humans have always opposed. Elder Morth raised one crystalline hand to call for attention. The matter has been decided by democratic vote. Humans will maintain their current territories and will be permitted to continue expansion at their current rate, subject to the same laws and regulations that govern all species. They will also be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that membership entails. The announcement sent another wave of discussion through the Chamber. Full Council membership for humanity meant that they would have a vote in all future galactic decisions. It meant that they could no longer be controlled by others without their consent. As the session began, to wind down, Ambassador Krall approached Captain Deho near the human seating area. His expression was still angry, but there was also a grudging respect in his manner. This is not overhuman, he said quietly. Your species will face challenges in the coming years that will test your idealism. The galaxy is not always a place where cooperation and friendship are enough. Deho met the ambassador's gaze steadily. You may be right. Ambassador, we will probably face challenges that we cannot imagine right now. But we will face them the same way we face this challenge, together with our friends and allies and without backing down from what we believe is right. The Vorthon leader studied the human captain for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Perhaps there is something to be learned from your approach, he admitted grudgingly. Time will tell whether your methods can survive contact with the realities of galactic politics. As the representatives began to leave the chamber, Captain Deho looked around at the historic scene. The humans had not come here to conquer or to dominate. They had come to demand recognition and respect, and they had achieved both through the support of friends they had made across the galaxy. The Council had learned an important lesson about the species from the small blue planet. Humans were not just another aggressive species to be managed and controlled. They were builders of relationships, creators of alliances, and defenders of freedom. They had earned their place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple revolutionary idea that all intelligent beings deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Admiral So Young Choi joined her captain as they prepared to leave the chamber. The message is clear, she said quietly. Humanity will not be contained, controlled, or conquered. We will take our place in the galaxy as equals, working with others to build a better future for all species. The galaxy had indeed learned something important about humans that day. They had discovered that some species could not be controlled because they carried within themselves an unshakable belief that freedom and cooperation were worth fighting for, no matter the odds.